Side one. Now a site. The workers a juma. You need to see a flatten. Na ahomachi na police form no sorry esu soja ye ball puwa bibra wo shot ade one shot ade o mo ma wo fa hwe den so to ahomachi no ti ade bu park so transform na mo butu obi no na sesa ye yire ni na be kai ho so mo nyina mo transform na me kura pon na me yi enyi yo hono ma no mo fa bus ebe sesa ye say omo dey call a court omo sesa nyina dey call Accra Central Police Station na ye wo mo na mo ka say ye ya free man probisa hono ye nya fie nti omo gya ye o ye nya ye ni agi because ye nim adekwa ye ya anta na omo gie omo die be bu hono ni ye hono ma uti udi Africa ye Africa no sa ye bus ni ma na police omo gira gate na no ni tuo na mutu kanu alarm wow ye ko du choko police na ana ye yin kofobi so uti udi ase form ana ye lock room e hono ye hu say omo dadai omo ko lock you na akami mini mi yi ne amane nyina de aka mo de ye ko gu police station e wo police station 1 hour time no appeal for when didi fiti anapa edu 5 o'clock iti no kulasi komu no kulasi and they rush me to hospital Colombo hospital enti free down no ade na yishimia me junior me ntia say ye nim say police wonu de ne soldier for no mo ba ye ho ba but ade omu ye ne de enye wan hu hwi o me sem say me ye kronu no anasa me ye de me bia anasa me ye bibi na wo titi me ni yi ne sa no be say mo fa mo court na court no en hwi asem no say de omu ye ne de eye ana.
This is his story. He's clearly aggrieved and he's wondering whether his arrest was lawful or unlawful. He's come to us and he wants to know what remedies may lie in law for him. Stay tuned. This is Law Express. Every person is entitled to his personal freedom, and this is guaranteed by the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. There are, however, instances where this personal liberty can be taken away from you, and this could be on the reasonable suspicion of the commission of a crime, or in the cases of people under 18 for their welfare or for their education, or even in instances where the court has ordered for such to be done. Today we discuss arrest. Right after this commercial break, I shall introduce to you my guest, and then we dig in. Stay tuned, we'll be right back after this commercial break.
We shouldn't see arrest as punishment, like I already said. It's a criminal procedure, just that it has to start with an arrest. And the fact that you have been arrested doesn't mean you are going straight to the jail. You have your right, your lawyer. Even if you don't have a lawyer, you have the right to be heard.
It's also possible for you and I to effect an arrest where, I mean, before somebody, an ordinary citizen is engaging in a conduct which, goes against the laws of the country.
This is Law Express. My name is Noella Seidu, and with me today are two outstanding lawyers, as I've already indicated, to discuss the topic arrest. To my immediate left is lawyer Albert Kwashiga, who is a law lecturer and also a private legal practitioner. On my far left is lawyer Bernard Oredu Donko, and he is also a legal practitioner in private practice. Gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When a person is arrested, he or she is deprived of his personal liberty and could be detained in lawful custody, as the law provides. Gentlemen, what do you think are the rightful modes for an arrest?
Well, thank you, Noella. First and foremost, what we would have to realize is we shouldn't see arrest as punishment. the concept is to restrain the person who has committed an offense or who on the orders of court have been asked to be restrained. And usually we do this by probably holding on to the person's body by touching the person, or probably confining the person. And we could confine the person by either, that's why you see some people in handcuffs and all that, just to prevent the person from escaping. Because most of the times you need the person who has committed crime for investigation purposes and for other processes of court. So you arrest him for him not to run away to face the consequences of his action. So that's basically the concept behind arrest.
I think we should perhaps go a little into the situations that warrant an arrest. For instance, in my intro, I'd mentioned for the welfare of a person under 18, maybe for education purposes, the person can be detained and that personal liberty taken away. But this would definitely not be an arrest in simple sense, but confinement or taking away the person's freedom.
I think that there are so many instances in which a person may be arrested. As you said, I mean, anytime you hear an arrest, what comes to mind is that an offense has been committed, or there's a suspicion that an offense has been committed, or in any case, the court has made an order for which execution has to be, levied against your person, and sometimes in contempt cases, this happens also. So, I mean, basically, an arrest, what it does is to take away from you one of the fundamental freedoms which are guaranteed by our Constitution. That's our freedom to move. When a person is actually arrested, there's a requirement of law that certain things has to be done. For instance, you have to tell the person immediately, in a language which he understands, the reasons for his arrest.
I'm going to cut you here because there's this whole story about somebody who was arrested and he pretended not to understand any language, and for which reason they couldn't proceed with the arrest.
But that's very funny because, I mean, that brings the question, when you have been arrested, are you supposed to be told all this at the point of arrest, or you can be taken to the police station where somebody else who understands the language can actually go?
Do you even know what language the person understands?
But then let me even come in. I mean, with this scenario, how do you then arrest a deaf and dumb person? Somebody who doesn't understand anything.
You definitely have to know how to do the signs.
So until you communicate to the person, you can't arrest the person.
To be unlawful arrest then.
You see, so I'm thinking, I mean, just let me add to what Kwame is saying. Now, if you have to arrest a deaf and dumb person who doesn't really understand anything, maybe if you suspect the person has committed an offense, you might have to just take this person to the police station, find somebody who can communicate with him in that language, and then I'm sure that you can take it from there. I'm sure that would be a more practical way to look at it.
In that case, then you have to maybe invite the person with you to the police station. But how do you invite the person? First of all, we have a challenge of the language. So how do I tell you that, listen, I'm taking you with me so that I can find somebody to tell you in, your sign language that this is why we are arresting you, and you also have all these rights.
Well, I think they're troubleshooting. I think you're making the situation more complex than it already is.
Yeah, so
I mean, in practical situations, if a deaf and dumb person commits an offense, I'm really sure that there's certainly going to be a way of, taking the person to a place where he can be told, the reason for his arrest and all that. So really, as long as a deaf and dumb person can commit an offense, I'm really sure that there's a way the law would deal with that person. I'm not sure.
Well, yes, you are right on point. I mean, definitely there would have to be incident of arrest. I mean, what goes into an arrest? And you're on point when you said that the person would have to be told in a language he understands why he's been arrested and all that. And it also goes beyond just the explanation. You need to take the person to the nearest police station because you can't detain the person after arresting the person. And probably the search that you would have to take the person to, because you are required per our laws, that's when you arrest somebody as part of the arrest process, you would have to search the person.
I think this search comes after you have told the person that he has a right to a lawyer of his choice.
Yes.
And also that he has other rights, maybe right to a phone and right to inform people that matter, that he's been arrested.
Yes.
Then we come to the search.
Yes. You see, it's not as if it's done as stage-wise or separately. It's all lumped together in what we call arrest, because it is your freedom that has been curtailed. So we are telling you which parts of your freedoms or which areas. So it even includes your where and what you are in possession with.
But mostly, people are not arrested at the police station.
Yes.
So if I'm arrested on the street, I cannot be searched first.
Yes.
I definitely have to be told of all those other rights so that you know why I'm and where I'm being taken.
Yeah, very well.
Then when you arrive perhaps at a station for lawful detention to take place, then perhaps you could search the person. And this search, I I think
Not
there's
to
a
cut you.
modality to that.
Yeah, not to cut you, but I think that it will depend on the circumstances
You
of
actually
the
have.
arrest. I'm sorry, but it's out the way. Now you see that it depends on the circumstances of the arrest. Now, for instance, if an arresting officer sees you committing an offense,
Okay.
let me be a little
Caught in
technical,
the
inflagrante delicto, they find you in the act itself.
And by that he means caught in the act.
Yeah, that's what I'm just saying. Very well, thank you. And so, when you find such a person and you have to exert some force to overpower the person, I think in the circumstances, it's okay if you can do the search there and then, because the person might have some articles on him which might be, evidence of crime and all that.
That would depend on the kind of search you are undertaking. I mean, the law governing this whole search thing makes us understand that you take away a lot of things from the
Yes.
person for safe keeping.
Yes.
And then you leave only necessary clothing articles on
Very
the
well.
person.
Yes.
And that is why at the cells, mostly when you even go to bail somebody, you find them mostly in their underwear.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
And so that could not be done
Yes,
publicly.
I think Noella has a point
Very
in
well,
the
yeah.
explaining to the person the reason for his arrest, because it could form the basis to a very large extent as to whether the arrest is lawful or unlawful. Because you see, if the person doesn't know why you are arresting him and you haven't found the person committing an act of which is a criminal offense, then probably the person would have to understand in a language you understand. Because it's very important, you would have to discuss that because it forms the basis in determining what is a lawful arrest and what is an unlawful arrest. So I think that is very important.
Okay.
Very well.
Before we go further to dig into the issue of search and all the incidents of a search, I would like to talk about where you arrest a person, like the place that it takes place, where it happens, the actual arrest happens. The arresting officer could go and then demand that the person in charge of the place gives him access into the place. And, this should be allowed, especially for a police officer, and especially where he has a warrant.
Very well. Yes, Noella, before we even get to that issue, I think it's important for us to know, because we've used the arresting officer, the term arresting officer. I should say that apart from the police, right, who we know are mandated to maintain law and order, it's also possible for you and I to effect an arrest where, before somebody, an ordinary citizen is engaging in a conduct which, goes against the laws of the country. And you would find that the rigorous processes which an arresting officer may have to go through in arresting may not be required in the case of an ordinary, citizen like you and I who are arresting. So I think that that's what we should look at it from. Then also the issue of where a suspect has run into a structure where you have to forcefully enter the place and arrest him. I think the law allows that, as you have said.
But then first, I was saying,
Yeah.
you have to demand or be, asked to go in, and on demand, you have to be given access. But failing which, you can forcefully enter.
Forcefully enter, and I think that's what it is.
So
Yeah.
you could do that. You see, whenever you are effecting an arrest, the whole idea is to get to the person, to confine the person. So whatever means that you would have to use to do that,
yeah.
it means you should resort to. And if it would include breaking structures and bypassing other places which probably you are not supposed to
like
effect the
breaking
arrest.
an outdoor, indoor window or door
Yes,
to get in.
Yes,
but then it should be reasonably done such that you don't,
And what if you come to my house and I said that, well, I can't allow you to, you have seen somebody enter my compound and you suspect the person might be in my room, and I'm like, I'm not going to allow you to enter the place. And what do I do wrong? Have I committed an offense? Have I obstructed?
In that case, yes, you've obstructed the police
the
officer.
course of
an
justice.
arrest, yeah.
Yes, and so
And you could be arrested for that.
that could also be arrested. And so I think that's what the public should know, that in our attempt to protect people who have been caught in a certain situation, we should be careful that we ourselves don't find ourselves in those situations. I think maybe that's correct.
Yes. I think it's very important we
important,
educate people,
yeah.
because there are some people who will shelter almost everybody.
Yes.
And believe everybody that I haven't done this. The moment a police officer comes to your house, that the person who just entered your gates is being pursued by the police to arrest, you need to give access to the police officer to effect the arrest of such a person.
The whole thing about arrest is not that the person is guilty by all means.
Yes.
Very well.
The person is going to be placed before a lawful or competent court. And then if he's, acquitted, he could be innocent as well. So it does not mean that it's arrest could be done on suspicion of the commission of a crime, and not because every instance you are guilty or you've been caught red-handed committing a crime.
And we should even add that we shouldn't see arrest as punishment, like I already said. It's a criminal procedure, just that it has to start with an arrest. And the fact that you have been arrested doesn't mean you are going straight to the jail. You have your right, your lawyer. Even if you don't have a lawyer, you have the right to be heard. So,
yeah, that takes me straight to the issue of unnecessary restraint. It's very, very crucial because this is one of the most abused things, you know. Yeah. We grow up seeing on TV people, I mean, almost every movie has somebody being hooked from the back and paraded through the streets. Some of them are beaten in the process of arrest.
Very well. Now, Emmanuel, you raised an interesting issue. You know, our laws are quite clear that, you know, your dignity should not be violated.
And this is a constitutional,
this is a constitutional provision. Your dignity. When they say dignity, you know, you have that right to be treated as a human being, not when you have been arrested, somebody hooks you from the back and your legs are hanging, you know. I mean, it's a very difficult situation, and trust me, these situations abound in our society. And that's why
I know counsel may say at this point that sometimes it's necessary.
Well, of course, sometimes it's necessary. I'm not saying anything to back the police or the arresting officers, but sometimes they're only being reactionary.
Yes.
You go to effect an arrest and the person is violent. Probably you would have to do one or two things to overpower the person before you arrest them. I'm not backing the police because sometimes it ends up in being brutalities. But most of the time, probably let's educate the public in this wise that, listen, if an arresting officer in the person of a police officer comes and asks that you are going to be arrested for A, B, and C.
Don't resist.
Just submit yourself. If you do that, that is it.
They may not even have to handcuff you, especially when it's not a major offense.
I have seen situations where people actually end up in fighting the police, the arresting officer. If you do that, he would have to resort to their quote unquote reasonable force to.
Yeah. So I think it also
take you to where you have to go.
I think it also depends on the mindset. You see, the police have a history of the way they have handled suspects. And so people know. So the moment the police, you confront the police and they say you have committed an offense, you are concerned, you are thinking about what treatment are they going to give me? And that's where the urge to resist comes in. But as you have said, never try to resist an arrest. Submit. And I'm sure that when you do that, you know, there are processes. You'll be given the right to your lawyer. You'll be given facilities to contact relatives and all that. So basically, I mean, those are rights that you should demand when you find yourself in the police confinement. I think it's very important.
Yeah, and I'm sure educating the public to know that the fact that you are arrested doesn't mean you are going straight to someone should be the focus. Because you see, the whole mentality and the psychology out there that the moment you are handcuffed, the next is jail. Just know that it's just part of a procedure where you'll be part yourself, because you'll be allowed to even cross-examine if you have no lawyer. Yeah. So it's like a process you're going to be part. So just allow yourself, submit. But if you react violently, the police officer might use the necessary force.
Absolutely. So we've been discussing the incidents of an arrest, the issue of restraint, search. We'll go for a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll listen to the opinions of people on the topic of arrest. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Still to come on Law Express.
Arrest is different from invitation. So if the police officer comes and he was just invited, you could resist. You could stand for your rights.
Where you are being invited simply. You can choose to go or not to go.
Yes.
Sunday afternoon and I was from home, so I saw the police patrol car at my junction. So the next thing I saw was they just entered this mechanic shop and pulled out one guy. I didn't know what he had done, but the guy was calm. They just put the handcuffs on him and one actually pushed him into the car, which I thought was not good, because if he had gotten hurt, fine, maybe he had done something wrong, but you doing that, you can hurt him. So well, that's one thing I saw, which I think was not good. At least they should have gently asked him to move, because he didn't tell them he won't go. He just calmly made them put on the handcuffs and everything, and he just went. So I think the shoving was not necessary.
Menam MTT anymore, and I'm police in the a pigeon and Sassemina. A femijina will be some 17 tadeno. I didn't know my sum, son, I'm so a bind or choice. And one year register into a certain woman, young ready, young answer can mammy. Oh, Menene Cassan now, I saw my talium, or even inside the Atocano, sudden I may tantro. and I'm so about me patron. Me no ye. I said me push me chiko. Say me go inside. Give no dey handcuff ne to me inside. Into dem go too mad dey chin.
I was there when the policemen came around, and then they came to take this guy I was sitting with. And he's always around people who smokes, but he doesn't smoke. Okay, so when they came, they thought he was part of the guys smoking. He just went out to give them an alert that the policemen are coming. And then when they came, they put the handcuff on his arm and then they took him away. So when I came back, people were asking me, what happened? And I said, well, I was just sitting down here with him, and then the policemen came to put the handcuff on his arm. But the problem was they didn't investigate him whether he was the one or he's the one who smokes or something like that, because I thought they sent someone as a spy to come and check. So when the person came, the person didn't alert them that this is the person. So they just came and then they put the handcuff on his arm. So when they took him to the police cells and then they realized he wasn't the one, they brought him back home.
Me and the police in chair me that. But me brand say obeji we can pay car. Now car no papa ne say waje car no. Nti ono so to carpet di sim. No be yi carpet ni free no. Na ka won an ko for police for. No on buy no be police for on buy no mo do so. No mo di menu an share car no boot. No mo di no call police station how we see. Nti wan say yeah that for say you know you come out for you chinti. Yeah, to me and the assembly and go do baby.
My experience, it happened around last year, 30th December. We were there. I was sleeping. Then I heard this gunshot. So we were afraid. So we learned there was this uncompleted building at my area where people come there and come and smoke weed. So we were there when the police people came there with the siren. They went there, they started shooting. The people started shooting and the police people also started shooting and they started running. So but they were able to shoot one guy. But the policeman who shot did it in a professional way. I thought they were even going to kill the guy, but they shot the leg. So they were able to arrest about 4 people. So that's my experience.
I was at a joint, a pub, drinking, and all of a sudden, the police people banged in. There were about 4. And what I saw was that they just handled 2 people, and you didn't know what the reason was. But then it was a kid. They were kicking them, booting them, and giving them a blow. And when anybody comes in here and said, "My friend, you supposed to stay back. At least we should know the issue why this thing was done," and we were told that they were suspect that they want to steal some items whatsoever. And I said that's a suspect, so you can't just beat a suspect just like that. And you see, anybody who comes in, it's like they bring it on you. So in this case, you think that the police have that power. When they get you, they can harass you and do whatsoever. So we all just mute and we stood aside, and that was what happened. But I think it's very bad. You see that because he says it's a suspect. But at the long run, later we investigated into the matter and saw that even those ones, there wasn't the real culprit. It wasn't them at all. But at the end, they were brutalized, slapped them, It was very bad.
The little experience I have, those I met, they acted professionally, and I think they are doing a great job.
Wow, these are really, very, very, serious stuff.
This is incredible. I mean, not in a civilized society like our own. I mean, there are laws in this country. I think it's only proper that when somebody has conducted himself in a certain way and you believe that is an offense, you just have to treat the person with that dignity. At least at that level, the person has not been convicted yet. So for me, honestly, this is quite worrying. I think this should not be happening in our country.
Well, obviously, I think you're on point on that. You see, what we would have to understand is that things are not supposed to be done arbitrarily. There are rules and laws governing all actions. You can't just, for the sake of arrest, do certain things. Because first and foremost, what you would have to realize is that the person being arrested is not guilty. Only a court of competent jurisdiction can either indicate whether a person is guilty or not. You are only starting the process. So you shouldn't act as if the person is a condemned person already, which is very wrong.
We had talked about something earlier, and that is the use of unnecessary restraints. At this point, we want to introduce maybe necessary restraints. So where the person perhaps is trying to abscond, is trying to resist arrest, yeah, it depends on how, violent the person is sometimes, because that is sometimes the police reacts to. your very demeanor. If you want to fight and then, throw your hands about or try to even attack the policeman, then maybe they may have to resort to some serious, physical restraints in order to take you to the station.
Yes, I do agree with you, but it shouldn't be the scenario of using a sledgehammer to kill an ant. I mean, it should be calculated, because at the end of the day, probably...
In which case you mean that, the force you use to restrain a person should not be so much.
Yes, should be reasonable.
That's not warranted
to fit the particular situation.
You see, in all this, we should know that the person being arrested also has rights. Because first and foremost, it is his right to movement that you are curtailing in doing the arrest.
Even his right to be treated decently.
That is where I'm even coming to. You see, the only thing you have is your right to arrest and not to subject him to other things, because he also has a right. And people should be made to understand that arrest is different from invitation. So if the police officer comes and he was just invited, you could resist. You could stand for your rights.
Where you are being invited simply. You can choose to go or not to go.
We doesn't have the discretion. I think there's a decided case on this. Something actually happened in the court had to pronounce on it. There's somebody who had been invited by the police. It was a mere invitation. The police hadn't told him the reason for the invitation and all that. He refused to go. And when the police wanted to use force, he ended up beating the police mercilessly. Unfortunately, when the matter went to the court said that, well, the man was right, because the police had not arrested the man in the first place. So really, these situations are also there.
It means that what we could tell the general public is, when the police officer comes approaching them, they should inquire whether they are being arrested or being invited to the police. Because if the person tells you are being invited to the police, then you could tell them, okay, you should go, I will come later. But if you are being arrested, that is when the incident of arrest should come, why you are arrested, the offense and the language and all that. So first and foremost, when you haven't committed any crime that you are aware of, and probably a charge has been made against you by somebody, please inquire from the police. Are you inviting me to help your investigations or arresting me in connection of a crime that I have committed? If you don't do that, then probably you also don't know your left and right. That is why you are subjected to such things. Most of the times, the people who go through this unnecessary restraints, as Noella put it, are those who actually haven't understood the concept of arrest. And I'm sure probably after today, most people and most viewers would understand the concept of arrest and probably will stand up to their rights, or probably submit to avoid the debacle, or probably all the situations that come with
at this point, I would like to introduce the issue of arrest with or without warrant.
Yeah, very well.
And yes, arrest with warrant, definitely you have, I don't know how to couch warrant to make it as simple as possible.
Yes.
You have
a
express permission or that authority to go and arrest somebody.
Either from the police or from the courts.
Yes.
You get it? So when you have an arrest, stating the one who you must go and arrest, I think it's desirable that the contents of the arrest are followed. So you go, the name of the person, you have to read those things to the person you are going to arrest. Otherwise, the person may resist the arrest.
Yes.
So, and in what circumstances may a warrant be issued? For instance, if let's say that you have jumped bail, you are in custody and you ran away, or you're supposed to come to court and you did not appear in court because you're on bail, the court may issue a warrant for your arrest, and once you are found, you'll be arrested, and the warrant has to be executed in the particular manner. It's not supposed to be arbitrary, as prescribed, And so there are other situations where an officer may arrest without warrant, and as we have said already, and when the circumstances require that an offense is being committed or is suspected to have been committed, you can arrest without a warrant.
Yeah, arrest without warrant also is just like a spontaneous thing.
Yes,
where you're committing a crime in the presence of the person, where you have a weapon on you, which you can explain for. Jaywalking sometimes could actually form that, and then,
And to add to that, in that particular situation, the individual, the private person, when you say private person, the normal Ghanaian who is not a police, also has powers to arrest. So we shouldn't probably confine arrest to where the police officer, but you, the individual, once you have the competence.
Yes.
Let me add the competence.
Or the opportunity presents itself.
Yes, it could be opportunity, but probably you might not have the competence, because if you have a man a stature of 6'3", sin committing, and you try as an individual, because for you there's no crime as obstruction for you. No, it is the police officer who, when he's been obstructed, could arrest the person obstructing him. But you as an individual, we should advise people, because probably we are telling them that they have powers of arrest. You see a 6'3" person, and you are probably...
This one, when it happens that way, you call your friends to come and help each arrest you don't do it all by yourself.
So for a situation like you sitting in your house and then somebody breaks in to steal, and you are many, you can arrest the person person.
Yes, you
because
will.
he's been caught. We have to let people know that it's the fact that you can arrest as a private citizen doesn't mean that you just go around arresting anybody.
No.
Somebody fights and then you go and arrest the person. There should be some particular instances where that can be done, and it has to be followed. If not, you open yourself up to being sued
all kinds of
in
legal
the civil,
suits.
courts for.
Well, just let me also add about the people who can arrest. For instance, we've mentioned arresting officers. We've mentioned other persons like individuals. I think that a district magistrate could also arrest a person where an offence has been committed before him.
And there will be an order.
In fact, that will be an order. So you can even,
police
before the court, he can say that you should be arrested. I mean, at the high court level or at the higher court level, the judges also have the power to order your arrest when you have committed some act which undermines the power of the court in a way. So
contempt,
contempt.
and
so
that's a topic for a whole new day.
Yeah, that's I didn't want to use that. But so different people can arrest, but the circumstances will differ. And when those circumstances present themselves, I think that it's good to.
But for me, I would rather educate the public that you see the fact that we're talking about the fact that you could arrest. Make sure you have the competence, because
that's the competence meaning that you should be taller than the one who's committing offense.
Not just that. You see, because you are going to curtail the rights of an individual.
Yes.
Even people obstruct the police.
Yes.
How much more? So because what will happen to you is, like we say in our language, allow me pata for diaba. I mean, you have no competence and you see somebody committing a crime. The best you could do is to call a lot of people, help you,
or call the police.
Or call the police. And actually, you can also help the police to arrest
that person.
Yes.
That's if it's easy to find where the person is.
So we'll go for a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about the consequences of unlawful arrest. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Still to come on Law Express.
You should know that if a police officer arrests you unlawfully, and unlawfully means that where the incidents are not met, you have some remedy in the form of asking for compensation against that particular officer.
So where all the modes, or the steps or requirements for a lawful arrest have, been followed, then we can say there's a lawful arrest. But then on the other hand, where those steps, like we mentioned, telling the person in a language he understands the reason for his arrest and the fact that he's being arrested and the fact that he has rights, notwithstanding the fact that you're taking away his personal liberty, there therefore should be some consequences where somebody is arrested unlawfully.
Yes, Noella, of course. I mean, once we've throughout our discussions established the incidents of a lawful arrest.
Yes.
Even if one of them is out there, it makes it unlawful. So, for instance, because the fact that you would have to tell the person in language the person understands, it's a constitutional provision. And a breach of it has a lot of consequences. So if you are not able to tell the person...
It's not negotiable.
Of course, it's not negotiable because it's a constitutional provision. So if you're unable to tell the person why, in a language he understands...
And that he's been arrested, indeed.
He's been arrested for this. If probably you don't give the person reasonable access to his lawyer, if you don't treat the person decently, if you don't send the person to the police station right after the arrest, if all these incidents are not met, then definitely...
Or you torture the person.
Or you torture the person, or you beat the person. When the person even submits, you beat the person. Then if all these incidents are not met, then definitely that particular arrest is an unlawful one. And the person would have remedy one, and probably he resisting.
Counsel, I'll stop you here. Remedy simply means that he has, something he can do to compensate himself or to seek redress. You're talking too much law.
Yeah, so that's okay. So that's what it is. So Kwame has said it all. We've discussed the elements of a lawful arrest. So whatever is not present leads to an unlawful arrest. Now, what happens if, for instance, the police have arrested you and you feel that the manner of the arrest is not consistent with what the laws of the land say? I think you should be talking to a lawyer. I know sometimes it can be difficult to get a lawyer. You must know somebody who knows a lawyer, and sometimes the police themselves will help you. They might even give you somebody
legal aid
and all that. But some people don't know about this, and sometimes. So the first thing you should be thinking of is finding a lawyer. You find a lawyer who to guide you as to what to do. And I think that when you have been unlawfully arrested, there's an issue of human rights abuse, and you can go to the human rights courts and bring in the police officer, bring in the IGP, include the Attorney General, and ask for damages because you have been unlawfully dealt with. And but I should say that most people don't really take this route. Normally, in Germany, when it happens that we just let it go. But in fact, I think this program should be. In fact,
Albert, I'm sure that's why we are here.
Yeah.
We have to tell the general public
that
they have remedies against unlawful arrest.
Yes.
Because it's a constitutional provision.
Yes.
You see, the particular officer, and the Constitution is very clear, I think 14.5.
Yeah.
It's very clear that if somebody detains or arrests you unlawfully, you are entitled to compensation against that person.
Yeah.
So we should know if there is this particular police officer who has arrested, just get his identification because now they wear tags and all those things. So we should let the people know that even not having recourse to a lawyer, you should know that if a police officer arrests you unlawfully, and unlawfully means that where the incidents are not met, you have some remedy in the form of asking for compensation against that particular officer. But the unfortunate thing is they hide under their duty thing and you have to go through all that.
The IGP and all that. But
whether with a lawyer or without a lawyer, you have a remedy against.
This is worth stressing every time over and over again that the Constitution provides that where you've been arrested, you should never be subjected to torture, cruelty, inhumane or degrading treatment whatsoever. Yeah. And also that you should not be put in a condition that detracts from you or is likely to detract from you your dignity as a human being. And when these kind of things come up in your arrest, or you can lead evidence to show that this kind of treatment was meted out to you, definitely it makes the arrest unlawful or the detention unlawful, and for which reason you should be heading to.
Yes, and let me just add this. You see, the perception about arrest as kind of a societal thing, where the society thinks that the moment they see handcuffs on your hands, it means you're a bad person. Let's advise people that, listen, sometimes people are taken to the police station not probably because they are the real causes of certain crimes.
You may even be helping in an investigation.
Yes. So whenever you see somebody working with a police officer, don't brand the person as a criminal. Probably the person has been invited and not arrested. Well, so we should just let the general public know that.
Or there could also be an issue of mistaken identity for a start.
Yes.
Because people are picked up and then a few questions are asked at the police station, they are allowed to go.
Yes.
You get it? So some of these things, I'm not coming saying.
Yes.
I mean, don't just brand people when you see that there's some
police officer with them. And you see, that is the cause for the resistance of arrest. Because you see, the person doesn't want to be seen out there with the police officer or with the handcuffs. So then he would have to run away or resist the arrest. But if we educate the general public that the fact that you see somebody working with a police officer to the police station doesn't mean the person is so guilty.
I think I would like to now talk about the issue of decency in arrest. You know, there are provisions for search, such that the law says that when you're a woman, you must be searched by a woman. And where you are a man, you must be searched by a man. Now, in Ghana, okay, we do not, we haven't accepted gay and lesbian relationships yet in law, but in other jurisdictions. My question always is that you get to an airport, maybe you are being arrested, and then, you know, there's supposed to be a search there because there's a suspicion that you have something on you which you shouldn't. And this is a gay officer. How then, you know, do we, you know, jump this whole hurdle of decency?
Well, Noella, that's an interesting scenario. In fact, I have to be honest with you. It's the law, the way it is, doesn't really make it mandatory that when you are a policeman, or if you are an accused person or a suspect who should be searched, it should be a man who must search you.
A man?
Yes, I mean...
A man searches a man.
Yes. I'm looking at decency. I mean, that's the only way it could go.
Yeah, but the law, I mean, for the sake of decency, it will be decent for a man to be the one to search a man. But where it is not impracticable, or if what is difficult to have a man searching
I'm going to ask you a question. So if you were a police officer and you have to search somebody and it's a woman, would you go ahead?
No, but you see, that's the issue. But I'm just making the point that the law doesn't make it mandatory the way it is. It is possible for a man to search a woman where the circumstances require that. But for the sake of decency...
I will depart at this point.
Let me come in. You see, truth to tell, having a man having his hands around you all over it's a bit creepy for me when you go to the airport and
they do that all the time.
These people would have to.
You have to be patted from top to down.
And sometimes
everywhere.
You insist a woman should do that, but they'll tell you.
But why you
No, if you wear a woman is patting me down, I'm uncomfortable.
No, I'm just being
so you don't want a man to search you?
No,
not at all.
The law is clear that you see, the law is very clear that if it's a woman should do it. If you look at a statute, it's very clear.
That is
but you see, there's something about law. You see, law or provisions of law are not necessarily absolutes.
Yes.
Where there's no opening.
So you're looking at in a situation of necessity.
Out of necessity,
a man may have to do it.
A man may have to do it.
But the provision actually says if it is a woman officer should do it. But like I said, circumstances. That is why we call it lacuna. There are provisions. Law cannot take care of every possible situation.
So you are saying that when those gaps come in, then we should have to dispense with that.
I think it's important. At this point, although I agree to you on the issue of decency, I think that we may have to check again because, I mean, if it is not practically possible for you to have a man, for you to have a woman around to search you. I mean, the man can go ahead and search you, but you see, there are limits. He must not search your private part. That's what the law says.
No, as for the law, it's straight
so what is your private part?
I mean,
that's the issue.
The private part?
Very well. So I'm saying that the man can search you, but he must know the limits of the search of the body. So the places that he shouldn't go, for me, because it will be treading on indecency if he goes to those areas. And the man will know. And the police are trained to know some of these things. So if we were to stick to that hard part and say that a man, a woman, trust me, there will be circumstances where there may not be that situation and we'll have issues with us. You get it? So what's that? Well, I think this can be found in a section under the Criminal Procedure Act of Ghana, section 83. If you permit me, I'll read it.
Yes,
All searches shall be made with strict decency, and whenever it is necessary to cause a woman to be searched, the search shall be made by another woman.
Yes.
You get this? Where it is necessary.
Yes.
You get it? To do the search.
Yes.
So
and you all have gone away from that. My point is, at the time that these provisions were there, the law perhaps did not anticipate those kind of situations.
Well, very well.
So I am wondering where situations like that happen, and this is a gay police officer. I mean, are you going to let the gay person touch you? I
mean, a man who is a gay touching a woman, or
touching another man? Because
how about a woman who is a lesbian?
Also touching another woman. That is the question I'm asking.
You know, but you see, Noel, I know this. I mean,
or we should say that we'll cross there when we get to that.
You see, there's a perception, a concept in law called the doctrine of necessity. And that is so necessary for law to take its course. Then it means even if we would have to improvise, then we would have to do that. Because, for instance, if you have an all-female police force, which I would want to subject myself to.
You are willing to submit to a search by a woman
if it's necessary.
This is getting interesting. So it's like you intentionally cause trouble so that you are patted down by a woman.
Kwame will never be arrested because that's what you have in your mind.
I'm only saying that, for instance, the provision of H3, which says that if it is a woman would have to do it, and it so happens that a woman is arrested by an all-male group police station.
What happens?
It means out of necessity, but you see, this gives a kind of discretion where in our own constitution we say where discretion is conferred on you. So if you're a police officer man and you've arrested a woman and you would have to search the person out of necessity, you should be guided by discretion. You can't go to every part of the body.
It should be out of necessity and not because you are visibly seen to be enjoying what
No, it should be out of, because you see the law precludes a man searching a woman. But we are saying provisions of law are not absolute in themselves, where we would have to improvise out of necessity.
So for instance, where there's a policewoman around, somewhere around, and you decide that it's still necessary because you can't call her to come.
That won't be a necessary. You have to
I'm just trying to let us see that it shouldn't really be necessary.
Yes, but generally the point that we are making is that when you have to be searched, it has to be done in a very decent way. And if it is possible to have, if it's a woman, if you can get a woman to search, get a woman to search. If it's a man, you have to get a man to search. Get a man to search. But now we are not very sure because you may have a man who is gay searching a man. You might know what may be doing.
Let me just chip in.
Issue,
you see, in this era of interpretation being the modern purpose. way of interpretation. You look at the provision and you ask yourself, what is the purpose? The purpose for that provision you could see as decency. So in all aspects...
And even the purpose could differ from scenario to scenario.
Yes. So in all aspects, be guided by the purpose of that provision is that your search should be done in a decent manner.
Decent way. From
so that decency is the catchword. So it doesn't matter if a man is doing
that a man could be searching a man and still be doing it indecently.
That is what I'm saying.
That's the issue I've raised earlier. You never know because you don't know where people get their feelings from.
In fact, you got me. That's why I brought
Did you get the point?
Counsel, I'm not talking about it in that
but that's just by the way.
I'm talking about it. You're just doing it. It's not about feelings, but you're not doing it decently.
No, you made a good point. That's why I brought the airport thing in. That sometimes it's creepy having a man doing that.
Pat a man.
Yes.
It's some way.
So even though the law says man should be done with a man.
Is it a man's thing or what? Because I don't see what's creepy about another man.
So the catchword should be decency because you could have a man doing a search on a man doing it in some kind of manner.
Way, you know.
Yes.
I mean, touching places is hidden.
Oh, okay. I get it now. Can we now avert our minds to the scenario that, we were confronted with at the beginning of the discussion, where somebody, has had almost all of those, rights violated. And then I don't know if you think that his narration points to a situation of unlawful arrest and what remedy he may have in law.
Of course, definitely. I mean, with such an act, it's definitely an unlawful arrest. And you see, like I told you, your right to remedy when you are put through such situation is in the Constitution, that you could go for compensation against such a person. Because you can't ask for remedies as you want a person sacked and all that, but you have right to compensation for unlawful arrest. It's a tortious act. So you could have a right in civil court. But now, thanks to, what the police have put in place, there's a professional and a standard unit, PIPs. If you have a police officer subjecting you to all these, you can have, probably if you can't go to court, you can go to the complaint unit of the police service, which is the PIPs, which I'm sure is almost now common knowledge. Everybody knows.
Yes.
So report the particular officer because the offense is against that particular officer, that individual who did it.
Or you could take another route by going to court. You call a lawyer, you sue, the police forces, including the one who did that to you.
So I think Kwame has said.
I think this really straightforward. It's a straightforward situation.
So I think all Ghanaians must know from today onwards, where you feel that you have been treated in an unlawful manner, there's always a remedy. It might take time for you to realize what you are asking for, either from the court or from PIPs or whatever, but eventually you'll be compensated in a way for having been treated less of a human being.
Let me just advise, because somebody came to me and said, it was in the local language.
Yes.
Lawyer, police,
Oops.
Yes. People come in, they tell you like, so let me tell people that, listen, you have remedy in law. So if a police officer has worried you in arresting you unlawfully, you
couldn't have put it better. Viewers, today we've been privileged to have two lawyers join us to discuss the topic arrest, and we have tried as much as possible to demystify, what this whole creature called arrest is. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on Law Express. This has been Lawyer Albert Kwashigar and Lawyer Kwame Bernard Orid Donko, also known as Senior, as he really likes to be called. Like we have already discussed, the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana provides and protects everybody's right to personal liberty. It also provides the incidence of an arrest and how an arrest can be lawfully effected. Where you believe or you suspect that these incidents or processes have been violated, find counsel. Like we always say, we can never mention it enough. Find a lawyer to advise you as to what you can do, because there may be a remedy in the law for you. This has been Law Express. Join us same time next week. Bye-bye.